All right, so it's always good to talk Pittsburgh Steelers football here on the Ourlads Football Network and the Ourlads Football YouTube Channel. So when we talk Pittsburgh Steelers football, Alex Kozora is here to join us. He is a writer with SteelersDepot.com. He was with us during the offseason when we had an opportunity to look at the draft. And here we are already, Alex. We're just a couple of weeks away from the start of the season, so this is a great time to reconnect.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. Should be a really fun year for an off season of plenty of changes for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Absolutely. And let's start at the top. The biggest change of all happening on the offensive side. So, how, from your perspective, how is the transition going on offense with new coordinator Arthur Smith and the new scheme changes? And as we talked about before on our last conversation, we figured that this would be actually the perfect marriage based on personnel with Alex Smith and the Falcons first in 22 personnel last year. That's 2 running backs, 2 tight ends. And you look at the Steelers, they love their 2 running backs, and they have 2 really good tight ends and 3 if you want to look at how they used them last year. So, yeah, how's the new scheme work and overall practice going with the new offense?
I think it's gone really well, Greg. I know this is the time of year where hope springs eternal and everyone's happy about their scheme and their coaching staff and the guys they have until the games kick off and things can change. But Pittsburgh is really committed to marrying what Arthur Smith's ideals are, which is, like you said, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, tight splits, play action, and marrying that with the people that they brought in. When you bring in quarterbacks that are more functionally mobile in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, you have your tight ends. The lack of a number 2 receiver right now, even though all the Ayuk buzz is going around, impacts this offense less under Arthur Smith, who traditionally doesn't utilize a number 2, number 3 receiver as often as Pittsburgh and their 11 personnel heaviness in the prime Ben years, for example. So I think it's worked out pretty well. The offensive line is going to be the key ingredient. There's some injury issues right now. That group's not been entirely healthy, which is, I think, had some bumpiness along the way this preseason so far, and that's going to be key going forward, is that group getting healthy and playing well. But yeah, I think what Pittsburgh has sought out to do, which is to run the ball a lot, probably be the most run-minded team in football and utilize play action off of that, has been what this team has shown throughout training camp and the preseason.
All right. Well, let's talk about that running game. I heard something not too long ago about Warren getting banged up. Is everything okay there?
He's got a hamstring injury. He injured in the Buffalo Bills game. Mike Tomlin says it's not long-term. Optimistic he'll be back for week 1. Obviously, no official injury reports this time of year. He won't play. Warren won't against Detroit in the finale. So hoping he gets back for week 1. Can't guarantee that. But even if he misses week 1, shouldn't be missing too much longer after that.
All right. So it shouldn't scare off too many fantasy owners then to draft Jaylen Warren. Okay.
Correct. So a really good either handcuff to Najee or really just a standalone value, especially for PPR leagues, because Warren will function as a 3rd down back.
And if Warren does miss the first game, does that mean that Patterson takes his spot?
Patterson should be the number 2, and he'll get his touches. They've moved him around, some receiver running back. He's got the receiver background, which he was coming out of Tennessee. But I imagine in that scenario, Najee Harris will go back to kind of his bell cow status, the way that he was as a rookie.
Okay. And then taking a look at the rest of the unit, let me just move this down here because we've got a lot of players still, of course, on the depth chart. Regarding these 4 here, P. Ryan I am familiar with. He was pretty good college running back at Florida, wasn't it? He was in a crowded backfield, really, with the Jets. Didn't take advantage of maybe some opportunities in Kansas City. At least it looked like that. He's here now. Any of these 4 running backs have a chance to make the team?
The 53, unlikely unless Warren's injury were to be more severe than they're leading on. I don't think that's the case. Jonathan Ward felt like that next man up as the number 4 running back. He's got a hamstring injury himself, did not play against Buffalo. I don't know his status right now, but he was the most impressive in the opener against Houston and throughout training camp. He's versatile. He showed off his speed, can play on special teams, had a lot of well-roundedness to his game as a potential number 4 running back. I think also behind him, it's still kind of muddy, but Aaron Champlin, who's kind of an unknown guy out of Harvard. He's got a big lower half. He's squatty. He's explosive. Vision a little questionable, but I think he's shown some things. He's worked as the personal protector on special teams a little bit, so there's some practice squad value with him. So if I had to rank it behind the top 3, no one else will make the 53, but Ward, Champlin. I like Dejon Edwards from Georgia. He's a tough contact balance runner. Not had a ton of carries in training camp. Got a little bit more play with some of the injuries there. P. Ryan's been okay, but I think Ward's the guy to watch, assuming he's healthy.
Okay, now let's take a look at tight end. And again, this is going to be pretty important here. Freiermuth coming back, being healthy. Washington year two. Um, what are you expecting? Do you expect a big jump up in production from both of those two tight ends?
Well, Fryermuth will increase his production, just assuming good health. He missed about 4 or 5 games last year with a hamstring injury. Hurt his chest in week one, which impacted him throughout the early portions of the season. So he should return to norm. And norm for Fryermuth is 60 plus receptions for 700 or so yards and a couple of touchdowns. And really, he is the de facto number 2 target in this passing game right now. It's George Pickens and then Pat Fryermuth behind. If they were to add Ayuk or somebody, that'll obviously change the equation. But in this Arthur Smith system, he should be utilized a lot and also used in different ways. He should be standing up in kind of a quasi wide receiver more. Kind of, I don't know. I think Arthur Smith compared him to Delaney Walker, kind of the way that Kyle Pitts got stood up some 3-by-1 backside, some stack looks with him and George Pickens to create some free releases. So you'll see Fryermuth probably less as an attached Y tight end and kind of standing up a bit more and utilize his receiving skills because he's an average blocker at best. And Darnell Washington is going to be your real, do the dirty work inline Y type.
Okay. Uh, as far as the receivers, again, we don't know how much they're going to use the depth of this unit with this offense. But Van Jefferson, of course, he came over to Atlanta late last year. Now he's moved over, followed Arthur Smith to Pittsburgh. Let's start with Calvin Austin, because I know we had talked about whether or not he's too small for this offense. Roman Wilson was drafted. So according to this depth chart, they're battling for playing time in the slot. Is that the case? And how's it going if that is the case?
I don't want to say that Austin is too small. I know conventionally Arthur Smith's system likes some bigger receivers because of their blocking skills. But you got small guys. Wilson's not terribly big, and they brought in Scotty Miller, who's about the same size as Calvin Austin. Where I think Austin has struggled is being able to. I don't want to say he can't run the whole route tree. He's not a gadget guy. He was a true receiver at Memphis, for example, but he's really just kind of one vertically, and it's very feast or famine. That's how it was last year. The big touchdown against the Raiders. Quiet the rest of the way. You could blame that on scheme, blame that on quarterback play. This season, this training camp, I haven't really seen him take that jump. I think his biggest issue, Greg, is winning in those contested catch situations. Unless the ball is thrown perfectly on him, he doesn't have to deal with contact and make that combat contested catch. He can make plays, but if he's got to be able to fight through something or extend outside his frame a little bit, he's really inconsistent, hard to trust in that sense. So I don't know what kind of role he'll have. He's behind Jefferson right now. Austin did run as number 3 throughout training camp, but I don't know what kind of consistent value that's going to bring. And he benefited from Roman Wilson, unfortunately getting hurt, had an ankle sprain early in training camp, hasn't played since, is going to miss the entire preseason. That puts him behind the 8 ball. Wilson was impressive with his route running, his catch radius, and tracking early on, but that was really before the pads came on. So it's really incomplete evaluation of what Wilson has done. But I imagine as the season goes along, Wilson's playing time will increase and probably take away even more from Calvin Austin. And Van Jefferson is this clear-cut number 2 receiver right now that like his versatility, his blocking, his experience, his hands. They looked more athletic in Pittsburgh in training camp this year than what he looked like in Atlanta last year, making more plays downfield. So not an ideal number 2, but right now the number 2 in the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver depth chart.
And Pickens, we know that he's clearly the number 1. He's the dude here offensively, big play guy. So Russell Wilson has been known in his career to throw a good deep ball. Are you expecting this to be even the biggest year that George Pickens has ever had?
I do. I think it will be. I think it fits the offense. You talk about running the ball and then vertical shots off play action, and that's where Pickens can thrive. I thought Pickens had a really good rapport with Justin Fields, especially in training camp whenever Wilson was impacted and held up by that calf injury, but Wilson looked his way a ton. And the moon balls you referenced that Wilson can throw. He's the best deep ball thrower, him and Fields, that Pittsburgh has had in quite some time. Pickens will benefit from that. But I think beyond that, because everyone knows Pickens about the big plays downfield, the awesome catches, Pickens has really worked to develop his game to be more than just the 9-route vertical type of guy. They moved him around more. He's playing in the slot more than he ever has before. I think Arthur Smith has creatively found ways to get him free because defenses will be keying in on taking him away as the clear-cut number 1 option in this passing game. I think there's been some really smart things formationally that Smith has shown so far to get him free. And Pickens has become a more nuanced route runner. He's never going to be elite. He's never going to be Devontae Adams or Stephon Diggs or somebody like that. But he is a much better post-catch guy than he was coming out of Georgia. His rookie year, he had the lowest yak per reception in the NFL of any qualifying receiver. Last year, he was top 10. And already this year, I'm seeing him improve post-catch even more. That long strider, high knee kind of guy. They can be tough to take down in space. So I think he'll be able to run a more full route tree. He's going to be able to get more open looks based on how the scheme is able to work him open more. And he'll still, of course, win effectively downfield. So all that combined, good health, assuming Pickens will have a big season.
You think they're going to keep – well, how many wide receivers do you think will be on the roster, and who will win, or who do you think has the inside track to win that last spot or two?
It's going to be 5 or 6, which I know is typical for basically every team. And there could be an outsider brought in. You're looking at that last spot, special teams value. Can you find somebody to play that Miles Boykin role? He was a tremendous gunner and is doing his thing up there with the Giants right now. Des Fitzpatrick could potentially fill that role. He's been the gunner throughout training camp. It's not made the impact that I've been hoping and searching for, but it could be him. They like Scotty Miller a lot. He knows the Arthur Smith offense. He's quick. He's fast. He makes tough catches. He's got a little bit of return value. So it's kind of Miller, Fitzpatrick battling towards the end. Wes Watkins came on strong at the end of training camp. I don't think he's going to make the 53. Just think he's going to be squeezed out by the numbers game. So it's probably Miller, Fitzpatrick, potential outsider, special team addition. Seems to be the bottom of the depth chart right now.
Okay. Now let's get on that quarterback battle. If it still is between Fields and Wilson. So going into camp, was there, in your opinion, a number one? And where do you think it stands right now?
Going into camp, Russell Wilson was the number one, which the team didn't shy away from. Tomlin called Wilson in pole position, and that's been his posture and the phrase he's used without really providing any updates on the position. Wilson will start this finale against Detroit on Saturday. I thought Fields had a really good training camp. I thought he progressed. I thought where he started camp to where he ended was really remarkable and notable. He was a more consistent thrower. I thought the first 4 days he looked like old Chicago times where it was a little inconsistent, missing routine throws, dropping his eyes a little bit too often. He did have a ton of batted passes at the line of scrimmage. He had 12 passes batted down during training camp, which is a number I've never seen before for a quarterback in a setting like that. I thought in stadium, you certainly saw some big plays and electric moments, but I don't think – I know they're both new, but to me, when you have two veteran quarterbacks, what you do inside stadiums matters a whole lot more than what you're doing in training camp. I don't think really Fields did enough to close that gap. And then maybe there was nothing he could have done. I think Wilson was really going to be this team's de facto starter unless something dramatic happened where Wilson just completely tanked and Fields was fantastic start to finish. I know that Tomlin used the racing phrase of pole position. To me, Wilson always felt like the pace car. Or as slow as he is, you can't pass the pace car. And I think that's kind of where this team is at. Tomlin has not declared a starter, but it would be a major upset, Greg, if Russell Wilson was not taking that first snap week one in Atlanta.
Okay. And has your mind changed at all regarding either quarterback and their respective futures with the organization, especially maybe Fields, considering, again, he's number two, and how long is he going to be here? Is it going to be just a one-year deal, or do you think Fields is going to hang around and eventually take over Wilson's job?
My mindset has not really changed, but it's also still uncertain because there is a great question about who's your starter right now, but who's your starter in 2025? Because there are no quarterbacks under contract past this year on your top three. Wilson's a free agent. Fields is a free agent. Even third stringer Kyle Allen is a free agent. So there's a lot to be battling for in this one. I will say, just to be clear, Fields will play this year. They're going to work a package for him. They're going to get him on the field. He is too darn talented to sit and hold the clipboard like a traditional number two quarterback. How much he'll play, I don't know. It'll ebb and flow, I'm sure, week to week, but there will be ways to utilize Fields' talents, and Pittsburgh would be foolish not to do so. So that'll give some evaluation of him, but I think Wilson's going to be the starter really the whole way, barring injury, and he's been a healthy quarterback throughout his career. That's going to make it tough to evaluate Justin Fields. So the concern is, will Pittsburgh be stuck in this quarterback purgatory they've been in post-Ben, where it's like, yeah, Wilson's okay, but do you want to pay him a bunch next year, 36-year-old quarterback? And yeah, Fields, we've seen some flashes, but have we seen enough to really evaluate him? It's a tricky spot to be in. So it's hard to say the future, but I'll just say the present. All I can really say with confidence right now is that Wilson will start week one, and where it goes from there is really just dictated by their own play.
How do you feel about Wilson, confidence-wise, and the fans? How do they feel as well? Are they seeing anything that says, yeah, there's a little bit of the old Russell Wilson here, and this is a better situation for him, much more well coached, better foundation. Yeah, hey, we're pretty excited about what's going to happen here, or maybe they really just haven't seen that yet, and they're still a little bit concerned.
The mood right now is a bit lower because the first team offense has struggled through the first two preseason games. Wilson and Fields have not led a single touchdown drive. They have 3 points between them. But I'm not panicking. It's preseason. There's some newness. Wilson missed the first half of training camp with a calf injury. And even if the preseason was awesome, Pittsburgh learned last year with Kenny Pickett, a great preseason does not always mean a great regular season. So I'm going to have a more kind of even-keeled thought about how camp has gone so far. I like Wilson. I mean, listen, if you can copy and paste his stats from last year, which was 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. I don't want to use the box score alone, but if you can just give that, Pittsburgh has thrown 25 passing touchdowns the last 2 years combined. Wilson threw 26 last year. Pittsburgh is just desperate for average. I know that's such a low bar and no one should hang a banner for it, but can you just get competent quarterback play that gets you 23, 24 points per game? This offense is so starved for just kind of that baseline average level of offensive play and passing game they've been missing the last 2 seasons. So if you can do that with a strong run game, with an improved offensive line and a top 5 defense, you can win a playoff game with Russell Wilson. That's kind of where I'm at with him. Pittsburgh, they've been to the playoffs, but they have not won a playoff game since 2016, which is an unbelievably long streak, and it has to end. I think Wilson can get them over the hump to win a playoff game. Can he win a Super Bowl? I think that's really pushing it. I think it's going to be really tough to get to that point when you're facing elite quarterback play in divisional rounds and championship rounds, etc. But I think you can get over the hump to win a playoff game. And if you do that, you're one of the final 8, and you got a chance. And that's where I think Pittsburgh can be at right now.
I know it's early as far as the relationship between the fans and Wilson, but Wilson does tend to carry himself a little bit like a prima donna. And Pittsburgh's fans, I mean, that's a complete opposite of what they're looking for. So has any of that showed itself, or not really, but it's early?
I think Wilson won a lot of fans over in the offseason. I mean, he coordinated workouts in San Diego before training camp started. He took guys to Pirates games and Penguins games. Here's where I come in on that. You're right. Russ he's a little, my podcast co-host Dave Bryan calls him Mr. Mayor. He's a little like mayor of Pittsburgh, very buttoned up, a little over the top sometimes. But all this comes down to how you interpret that is based off his play. If he's winning, he's playing well, then he's dangerous. Like he's going to have that. Like we love the cliche. We love kind of the cornballness. If he's struggling and the team's not winning, then it's cornball Russ, and we hate the cliche. So, I mean, the way that these things get viewed, that lens is all about the on-field performance. So, yes, we've kind of felt some of that and, giving the perfect answer each time whenever he speaks with the media, and I get that. But the way that fans will receive that is all going to be based around his play.
All right, and before we get to the defense, the offensive line. So year 2 for Broderick Jones and the 2 rookies. It does look like on paper that the Steelers have a better line, but again, you do have 3 of the 5 that are fairly young in Jones, Frazier, and Furtado. So talk a little bit about what you've seen so far. And again, it's a new scheme, so I don't know what kind of major changes they've had with that scheme on the line with their blocking, but how's it going?
To go with the 3 young guys you mentioned, Broderick Jones, it has been a tough summer for Broderick Jones. He's got an injury of some sort. It's an elbow. He said there's multiple injuries right now. He's got a big brace on his right arm he's worn for most of training camp, and I believe that's impacting his play to a degree. Now, to his credit, he's not making excuses and talks about he's just got to be better. He was terrible against Buffalo. One of the worst performances you've seen. Gregory Rousseau just ate his lunch the entire game. And so Jones has to be better, has to be more technical. His punch is a mess. His strike placement is a wreck right now. He's got to be able to adjust. And Pittsburgh has not done him favors by this flip-flop between playing left tackle and right tackle. They have not really set out a clear-cut course of like what he is. He should be this team's franchise left tackle. He's a talent. And he has played mostly right tackle throughout the summer. Little bit of left tackle, but Dan Moore Jr. has been his team's first team left tackle still, and maybe we'll start the season at left tackle. That cannot be discounted. Jones has to play well in the finale against Detroit, I think. Furtado, a bit incomplete. Look good in training camp. He's not terribly big, but he's got good length. He's got a big, powerful lower half. You cannot beat him to the edge. He's so just athletic out of his stance. It's really hard to beat him wide. You got to be able to counter inside. That gives him a bit more trouble. Unfortunately, against Houston, he sprained his MCL, only played the first half, has not played since, will not play in the preseason finale, hopes to get back for week 1. Reporting is he's still going to start at right tackle week 1 despite that. We'll have to wait and see. His health will be a guide in that. And Zach Frazier will be this team's starting center week 1 against Atlanta. That was probably inevitable, but it was accelerated by Nate Herbig, unfortunately, tearing his rotator cuff literally in the last hour of the last training camp practice. In a one-on-one blocking drill, he tears his left rotator cuff. He's done for the season. He was having a good camp, but Frazier will be this team's first team center, starting center, and he's been really good. I think he's impressed and progressed throughout training camp. His quickness off the ball, his football IQ. Arthur Smith called him the most prepped rookie that he's had, and so those are big praise there. And he's ready to go, I think, for week 1. So it'll be a big test against Atlanta and Grady Jarrett, but Frazier will start, and I think he's certainly more than held his own.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. It is kind of ironic that Pittsburgh and Atlanta will.
Yeah, Arthur Smith, welcome back, like you never left.
Yeah. Okay, so let me get this straight then. Mm-hmm. You think Herbig then would have started opening day?
I'm not sure. Herbig was running first team center all training camp. They had some exchange issues in the opener against Houston. Frazier started getting first team reps, and then Herbig got hurt, and that ended the conversation there. So Frazier may have still started week 1, but obviously with Herbig out, that is cemented. But Frazier's all like it's a seamless transition. Frazier is certainly ready to start week 1.
All right, and if Fetanu starts at right tackle on opening day because he's healthy, and again, that's what it sounds like you're saying, who do you believe is the starter at left tackle on opening day?
I would have told you before this Bills game, Broderick Jones, and I still think it'll be Broderick Jones because it's so hard to bench your first round tackle you just drafted last year, but they really like Dan Moore, and if Jones can't prove his health and he's just simply not ready to go, do you put a struggling left tackle to protect Russell Wilson's blind side? I mean, and Wilson's not as mobile as he used to be, so we'll have to see. You're going to face Matthew Judon and struggle against that. I'll still go with Jones right now, but that door is open for Moore. They've liked Dan Moore. He's had a good training camp. He's highly experienced. He's been their starter at left tackle every game but 1 since 2021 when he got drafted. The fans don't like him that much, but the team loves his work ethic and dedication. He's a great teammate. So we'll see.
Yeah, you do. I mean, and again, I'm not saying that the coaches are wrong or not, because sometimes they are, but it's the one thing that bothers you about certain players as fans when you go, look, the guy's clearly not better than the other guy that's younger, and he's the next guy in line. And the coaching staff just gets so pigheadedly stubborn about the vet because, again, like you said, he's good in the locker room. It's like that scene in Moneyball where Pitt, as Brandon Beane, is trying to explain why he doesn't go on trips on the plane. Because he doesn't want to be friends. He doesn't. He has to cut the guys. He's got to trade them, and that's what doesn't happen a lot in the NFL. Because, and I don't think it should. I mean, especially the coaches, of course, they got to be around these guys. But you do wonder whether or not that's something that they, unfortunately, it gets too personal. And it's like, look, the guy's a good guy. You love him. He's a great guy, great in the locker room, but he's just not better than the other guy. He's a better player. So I don't know how it really works out here with Jones and Moore, but that's kind of what I'm thinking I'm hearing.
Yeah, no, I love the Moneyball analogy, and I'll kind of try to stretch it out too. It's like with not putting aside Jones's issues, like Jones should have been this team's left tackle from day 1 to give him the opportunity. Like he's a young guy. He had 14 starts at Georgia. He should be getting these reps and being able to hone his craft. They bounced him around. It's kind of like had the Athletics never lost Jason Giambi, but we're still like rotating him like as a platoon guy every single day. Like, no, you have Giambi. You didn't lose Giambi. Like, we love Hatterberg. That's great. But like, you have Giambi still. Just play Giambi. It's kind of like that. So it's been frustrating to see this team. And they've done that with Kevin Dotson, which was an issue. He shined with the Rams when he moved back to his right guard spot, and Kendrick Green, they didn't know what to do with him. They have bounced these linemen around. Even Fauton, left tackle in college, will play right tackle in the NFL. It's just, you take these guys, you change their positions, you create more projection, more risk, and I think it's hurt these guys.
Okay. The rest of the offensive line, McCormick is the draft pick. Are they okay as far as you mentioned Moore, of course? So one of these guys is going to be the backup, but how are they depth-wise?
They're pretty good. And listen, Mason McCormick has been a star of the summer. I am
Oh,
pleasantly surprised and was abundantly wrong about my expectations on McCormick going into training camp. I thought he would be a guy that would struggle. He comes from South Dakota State. He was highly experienced, but when you come to Pat Meyer's system, the O-line coach, usually for the interior guys, especially the guards, it takes some time to adjust. I've even seen veterans struggle. James Daniels, his first training camp in Pittsburgh was abysmal because he had to learn the new techniques that Pat Meyer teaches, which is a really aggressive or flat pass set. It's not giving ground. You're either staying flat or you're coming forward on your pass set, and there's an adjustment period there. But McCormick has taken to it so quickly. He's had a great summer overall. He's been a guard. He's even maybe going to get some center work because of the Herbig injury, looking for a backup behind Frazier right now. I think McCormick could be that guard of the future. James Daniels, last year of his contract, his team will not be re-signing. James Daniels will be playing elsewhere in 2025, and Mason McCormick may be starting by then. So I like him. Spencer Anderson has had a good camp as well, potential backup center as well, and Dylan Cook's been a developmental offensive tackle that I've been a big fan of.
all right. Sounds like the Steelers are in pretty good shape. It looks like they've done a really nice job the last couple of drafts improving that offensive line. All right, let's now go to the defensive side. And here you do have a defensive coordinator, Austin. He's been there for 3 years. I think he's been with the team 6. Obviously, you know that. So let's talk about the guys up front, especially Cam Hayward. How many years do you think he has left? And how many years do you think he has left at a high enough level where it's not going to affect him or the Steelers?
He wants to play 2 more years, so he wants to play through 2026. That's his goal. It's kind of a starting point. He's a free agent to be after this year. He wants an extension. We'll see if that happens. That's still up in the air right now. I think he can still play longer than most guys at age 35 because he's a power guy. He's a strength guy. I think when you're the more athletic type, that tends to go quicker. You lose your speed, your quickness a little bit sooner. The power kind of hangs around longer. And so as long as he has that, he can still play, I think, at a pretty high level. And obviously last year he got hurt and came back. Mid-season was not 100% and certainly looked every bit of not being full Cam Hayward. He's looked strong in training camp, and they've been mindful about resting him, not playing him in the preseason, etc. How much longer can he play at a really high level? History says to be a 10-sack guy at this age, it's very hard to find those examples. You look at John Randall, Warren Sapp, those guys faded around this time in their careers. I don't think Hayward will get back to being a 10-sack guy, but can he be a 6-7-sack guy for this year, next year, and play really solid run defense? I think he can be that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now on Cam Hayward. I know the fan base is kind of turned against him a little bit. Some want to see him go because he wants an extension. He got hurt last year, but I am still firmly in Cam Hayward's corner.
Okay. And Benton looks like, especially when you looked at him in college, you felt he had an opportunity to be a really good player as a rookie. He seemed to do pretty well, had his ups and downs, but overall looked the part. So Steelers hoping for an even bigger breakthrough for him this season, I suppose.
And they should get it. I think Ben's had a strong training camp. Second year. I think it's just important for second year guys in general because I don't know how any rookie survives. They go from their college season to all-star games to combine training to the actual combine to pro days to private workouts to the draft to rookie mini camp, OTAs, training camp, regular season playoffs. Like that is just a gauntlet that is unbelievable. So when you have a chance just to breathe for a couple weeks in the off season, you know where you're at. You don't have to worry about where you're getting drafted, what scheme, playbook, all that kind of stuff. It's really important for any sophomore, but it's good for Benton as well. He's worked on his power. He's got a really good club over move. He can really win finesse and beat these centers and guards to the edges. Can you create power to win down the middle and be able to collapse the pocket and win in different ways? He's showing that. He's dropped some weight. He's in better shape. He's had a good summer. Hopefully this team's nose tackle rotated in some packages. Big fan of Keanu Benton.
All right. And how is the overall rest of the unit depth-wise? And also Logan Lee was a 6th-round draft pick. So how's the depth look?
It looks okay. I want to be careful. I was really impressed with the depth this time last year, and they did not show it once Cam Hayward went down. It was pretty much a mess last year. But I think guys like DeMarvin Leal, he needed to have a really strong training camp. He was a bubble guy entering this year. He's gotten it. I don't think he'll ever be what the team envisioned him when they took him in the third round in 2022. I don't think he'll ever be an every down guy. One report said he's 275 pounds right now. He won't be a base end in Pittsburgh at 275. That's just far too light. But can you be kind of a rotational sub package guy? He's working at outside linebacker still. Line's got short there. He's played on his feet some, so he kind of might be wearing different hats and some sort of pass rusher. But he's a much better technician. He's beating blocks. He's now no longer just an athlete. He's a guy that can translate that into useful energy and actually winning football. Lowry and Loudermilk are just like classic base ends. They can stuff the run. They really offer nothing against the pass, but they're competent run defenders, and so that's fine. Adams is a training camp star. That's an okay player in the regular season. He's a fine backup nose tackle. And Logan Lee, they've had him as a true 3-4 nose tackle, which is not his game when you're 6'5" and kind of getting leveraged by these centers. He's played 89% of his snaps in the preseason so far at nose tackle, which is not his role, so it's been tougher to evaluate him. He's got a hot motor. He's decently athletic. I didn't love him coming out of Iowa. He's going to be on the practice squad to start his career.
Okay. Let's take a look at that linebacking core. And, of course, you've got two of the best in the business, opposite sides, Watt and Highsmith. Highsmith joining the club to give the Steelers really a lethal 1-2 punch, as good as, if not better than, any team in the NFL. We also talked recently about that the Steelers are hoping that Nick Herbig can take an even bigger move after a solid rookie season. So everything looking good there?
Yeah, at edge, I mean, that's the engine of Pittsburgh's defense, and you can ask me anytime over the last 20 years, does Pittsburgh look good on the edges? And yes, they've always looked good on the edges. Watt is Watt. Highsmith's had a groin injury, but he'll be good for week 1, and Herbig's going to be this team's clear-cut number 3. They're even, I think, going to use some 3 outside linebacker packages to get Herbig on the field in some passing situations. They've done that before with Highsmith this rookie year, Melvin Ingram the year after, but they're really excited about Nick Herbig, and I was wrong on him. I thought he was too small to play at outside linebacker, play on the edge. I mean, he had a really good rookie year. Just can he play with some volume? He came off the bench fresh last year. He only had to play like 5 snaps in a row, just like very fresh snaps. And so you want to see a bit more volume this year. But Herbig's a hard worker. He's learned a lot from Watt and Highsmith, so they're good there. Number 4 spot will be interesting. Jeremiah Moon, Kyron Johnson, different body types. They're fighting down to the wire for that 4th outside linebacker spot. They're both capable special teamers, and so this one's going to be a battle to watch against Detroit.
Okay, and then inside, of course, the big move is bringing in Patrick Queen. So I'm sure the Steelers franchise hoping he's going to be the man there for many years. It was also quite fitting that they drafted Peyton Wilson. He just seems like a perfect fit for the Steelers organization. I loved him in college. And I'm sure the Steelers fans just probably fell in love with him immediately if they had no idea who he was. Just taking a look at his background, what he's been through, and how he's persevered. It's all about staying healthy for Peyton Wilson, and if he does, I think he's going to be a fantastic fit for this team. So I think, with Queen and Wilson in the future, that's looking really nice. How's he looking, though? I mean, I'm tooting his horn, but I haven't seen any of his action in preseason yet. But I got to, again, assume that fans are pretty excited about the future there.
Yeah, honk that horn. They've been good. I think they have a really strong top 3 in Queen, and Wilson, and Roberts. Queen will be the every down guy. He'll wear the green dot. He won't come off the field. He's had a really good summer. He's been a tone setter. He's kind of brought that Baltimore edge to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has had that edge too, but it's just you get a little sharp edge from Patrick Queen, which I appreciate. He's been a real big tone setter in training camp. Him and Roberts have been. I wonder about Queen in coverage and kind of turning and running. I still if I have as much confidence in him as maybe others do. I want to be able to evaluate that more. Although I think, I might have told you this before, Greg, I think it's like 3 good coverage linebackers in the NFL. Like, it's such a hard position to play against athletic tight ends and schemes and stuff. But that's a good top 3. Roberts and Wilson will rotate. Roberts probably will play in their base 3-4, Wilson in their nickel packages, and then Queen is your every down linebacker. So Pittsburgh enjoyed a 3-man rotation last year of Holcomb and Roberts and Quan Alexander until everyone got hurt and everything got screwed. But they'll have a 3-man rotation, or really a 2-man rotation of Roberts and Wilson to go along with Patrick Queen. And Pittsburgh, I think, is very happy about that.
Yeah, that's a big difference. That's a major upgrade. How's Holcomb?
Not good. He's going to start the year almost certainly on reserve PUP. He did not practice in training camp. I didn't even see him at training camp. Maybe he was there, but I never saw him down on the field. I mean, he's walking. He was He's no longer on crutches. He's posted some videos of him rehabbing, but they reworked his contract to have a reduced salary. He's going to be on reserve pup. Will he play this year? I don't know. Not looking great. And even if he does get healthy to return, I don't know what kind of role he's going to have when you have Queen and Robinson Wilson. Those are spoken for. So I don't know what his status and future is. It's unfortunate, a severe knee injury last November against Tennessee, because Holcomb was having a good season until then. But yeah, it's just going to be more time to wait on Cole Holcomb.
And so once the season starts, does he do they put him on IR? How does that work?
He'll go to reserve pup. He was on active PUP since day one of training camp, and so he'll just go to reserve PUP once roster cutdowns happen on the 27th.
All right. Now, secondary. Some interesting moves here. So they acquired Jackson in the trade. They also get Elliott in free agency. And then, according to the depth chart, because when I looked at it myself, I was like, whoa, okay. And I had known Bishop just not because I didn't see him play last year, but just reminded myself of him because I was doing my research for the upcoming college football season. And I'm like, so as soon as I saw Bishop, I was like, whoa, okay. I just remember thinking about him, first team All-American at West Virginia. And is this real? Is this like he's really played this well that he could end up being the starter? Does that have to do with Sutton being suspended and this is just the best they have? Tell me the Beanie Bishop college free agent story of 2024.
It's kind of all the above. Bishop throughout training camp was consistently working as the first team slot corner. I thought he was doing a good job, not a great job. I thought some were kind of overstating his performance and a little over the top, a little prematurely. And then they wanted to rotate in some different guys. They wanted to try Graylin Arnold in the slot role. He was getting first team reps. Well, he hurts his calf on a kick return drill on the last day of training camp. He's on IR. He's been waived with an injury settlement. He's out of the mix. They wanted to, obviously, Cam Sutton is suspended the first 8 games, so he's not going to be a viable option. Terrell Austin, the DC, spoke with the media earlier this week, and he said, it's wide open. Like, whoever shows up gets the job, is literally what he said. Bishop himself has been hurt. He missed the Bills game, which was crucial for his development. It sounds like he will be playing against Detroit. It's a huge game for him. So right now it's Bishop as the starter. That's real, but he's got to prove it. He's not locked down that job. Thomas Graham Jr., the backup behind him on the depth chart, has had a good summer. He's made plays on the football. He's got some NFL experience in Cleveland previously, so he's in the mix as well. They could go outside the organization. I think the bottom line, the short answer is, Greg, it's a pretty fluid situation, and this finale against Detroit will be really important for Beanie Bishop.
All right, so it's still a wide open spot before even preseason game number 3. Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember just a few weeks ago, there was a ton of DBs still available in free agency, and a lot of those guys are starting to get gobbled up. So I'm not sure there's still any viable options out there. Has there been any rumors about any specific free agents?
No, the only thing fans and people like me have kicked around is, do you bring back Patrick Peterson to play that slot safety role that knows your defense and can come in right away? I think that makes some sense. Is it going to happen? Peterson would love to come back. He's expressed it many times on his podcast, like, please sign me back. They cut him earlier this year in March. I don't know if that's going to happen, but this thing's open, and it'll probably be a committee, to be honest. Since they lost Mike Hilton, they've had a committee approach, a rundown nickel and a pass down nickel. You could see Deshaun Elliott get slot reps. He's worked in big nickel packages. He was getting slot work early in training camp. I doubt whoever wins this job will be the solo guy. It'll probably be a village to work that slot role.
All right. And how's Jackson acclimating to his new digs?
He had a good training camp. I was impressed. I thought he was really competitive against George Pickens. He's fast. I thought he's never going to be a great corner, but I thought he was better in Carolina last year than people made him out to be. So I think he'll be a competent number 2. Just, can he be consistent and not a liability? If he can do that with Porter as number 1, I think you're good. Depth behind is an issue, though. What they have behind Porter and Jackson is scary and thin and inexperienced, and gives me a lot of pause.
Another reason why going out and getting a player like Peterson or again, anybody similar is something that it could very well happen, because it's not just that nickel spot. It's about adding another capable corner to the room, isn't it?
They need a vet. They need some experience. You got Corey Trice Jr., rookie 7th-round pick from Purdue in 2023, tore his ACL the first padded practice last year, which is the second torn ACL. He fell because of medical concerns. He's been able to work his way back this year. Could be an option in dime packages. I'm not going to put him out there next man up right now behind Porter and Jackson. Darius Rush, Colts draft pick, bounced around last year. He was working second team corner at the start of camp. He's lost some playing time. Could he make the roster? It's possible, but 40 career snaps, do you want him behind? I don't want that right now. And really, there's nothing else to talk about. So they're going to add an outside defensive back. Slot corner, outside corner, it's kind of all on the table. I would be shocked if they went into Atlanta week 1 with the current group right now. They need some outside veteran help.
Watts, the other 6th-round draft pick, do you think he has a chance to make the team?
To me, he's on the bubble. I think there's some really impressive traits with Ryan Watts. He's big, he's physical, he can hit, he's a good tackler in open space. I think a better athlete than some give him credit for. But he's a 6th-round guy that played corner at Ohio State and Texas, making the transition to safety. And Terrell Austin, the D coordinator, talked about him learning the game, being at a position, missing some assignments. I think it's kind of been, continual. I think he's a really vocal communicator. He's gotten a ton of reps at safety this camp. That's been good for him. Can he win a gunner job? I mean, we talk about it, but no one talks about Pittsburgh lost both their starting gunners last year in Miles Boykin and James Pierre. They need some guys to replace that, especially with a punter in Cameron Johnson who can boom the heck out of the football. And they need guys who can cover. And so can Watts win that job? That's his best path to making the 53. If not, it may be practice squad to start for him.
All right. And how's the kicking game looking? But we know Boswell is just this perfect fit here in Pittsburgh. He just knows how to kick there, and it's just solid. Overall, the kicking game looking okay?
Yeah, the kicking game's looking good. The coverage game is a different story, and some things to work on there. Like I mentioned, Johnston, I mean, he's averaging in training or in 2 preseason games, which the sample size is small, but he's an established, proven guy. He's averaging over 50 yards per punt, but his net is 36 yards. I mean, it's a 14-yard delta there, and that's not acceptable. And I know it's preseason, and they're not playing all their starters out there all the time, but like I mentioned, they have to find some gunners. Boykin and Pierre were really good at that job last year. I mean, you finally get a punter who can kick the crap out of the football and don't have the guys who can go down there and cover, and so that's a concern. They may go outside the organization for that. Heck, if the Giants cut Miles Boykin, I'm bringing Miles Boykin back to Pittsburgh in a heartbeat. They need a guy who can go down there. Johnson's going to boot the ball 60 yards. They need someone to go down there and cover that.
And is it going to be Austin and Patterson? Do you think they're definitely the 2 guys? I mean, how has it looked so far in the preseason? Who's back there?
For kick returns or punt returns or all the above?
Yes.
Everything. Okay, gotcha. Punt returns, it should be Austin. They tried some different people. They tried Quez Watkins in the opener. He was a disaster. That's not going to last. Scotty Miller's gotten some work, but it should be Calvin Austin. Kick returner will be Cordero Patterson. He started the year on NFI with a hamstring injury. He's come back. He's not gotten a single kick return. I would like to see it at least once under these new rules. Mike Tomlin said that's not necessary. They know Patterson's resume, and he'll be good to go for week 1. You do need a second guy back there in the landing zone. I'm not entirely sure who that will be. I thought Jalen Warren made a lot of sense, but with his hamstring injury, maybe you don't want to have him doing kick returns in week 1. Could be Austin. Could be Scotty Miller. Could be maybe someone else. They really used a lot of a guy named John Rice Plumlee in summer. He's a quarterback, but he is doing everything but quarterback. He's played wide receiver. He's played kick returner. He's gotten punt returner work in practice. He's been the personal protector on the punt team. He made a tackle on punt coverage in the opener. So, he's been fun to watch. He won't make the 53, but they've kind of gotten some backups, some looks there. So it'll be Patterson and somebody else, but Patterson hopefully will be the main guy returning kicks.
All right, so it's the toughest division in football. You've got any 4 teams in the AFC North can win the division, and nobody would be surprised. And I think the only team that it would surprise anybody to finish in 4th would probably be Baltimore. But then again, if they lose Jackson the way Cincinnati lost Burrow, that's what would probably happen. So it's a fun division to watch and to cover, I'm sure. What are you thinking so far? I'm sure if you asked 20 experts, give me a prediction 1 through 4, you'd probably have 10 different answers. So what do you think, based on not only the Steelers, but just overall from what you feel about this division? It's Baltimore. I'm sure that, hey, they're the team. You got to respect them. That's the one you got to go after. But Burrow's going to be back. That's huge. Watson, if he's healthy, that's huge. But as good as the division was last year, you think it should be even better this year, because as long as all the quarterbacks stay healthy.
Right. That was the issue last year. Baltimore kept their starting quarterback. They won the division. Lamar stayed healthy, and that was huge for them. I don't have a final thought yet. And my preseason predictions, it doesn't matter. It's all going to be out the window by the time, week 3 rolls around. The whole landscape is different. I mean, Pittsburgh, my thought, Greg, is they won 10 games last year, and they shouldn't have won 10 games last year. They had this massive quarterback, and defense was a wreck and lost a bunch of guys. Mike Tomlin, it's the Jurassic Park line. Like, life finds a way, and Mike Tomlin finds a way to win 9 or 10 games. This team needs to be beyond that. I kind of hate the whole never had a losing season stat. You can commend it in some sense, but that's not the standard in Pittsburgh. But I think they'll be a 9 or 10 win team. It's a tough schedule. It's brutal down the stretch. I mean, that's impossible to predict what the NFL will look like by Christmas, but 6 of their final 8 games are all against the AFC North. I don't know why it's so backloaded. They play the Eagles and the Chiefs as their 2 non-AFC North games down there. So it is tough.
Wow.
I think even the beginning is tough. Like, you're at Atlanta, at Denver, 2 road games. I think 2 competent teams. You play the Colts and the Cowboys in week 3 and 4, like in the Chargers. Like that. That's all going to be, I think, a battle as well. But I think this offense will be competent and organized and average, which doesn't sound like much, but in Pittsburgh, to be average would be incredible based on where this team has been the last couple of years. This defense, if they're healthy, can be a top 5 scoring defense, and you have Watt and Hayward and Minkah as your pillars. So I think it's going to be a 9-10 win team, and a team that I think can finally get over that hump and win a playoff game, something that has eluded them since 2016, a drought that just simply has to stop. The last time Pittsburgh has had this long of a postseason drought was the pre-merger before Chuck Noll got there, and that is a troubling stat that must change. I think it will. I think it can. I shouldn't say it will. I think it certainly can. They're in a better position now to get over that hump.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of franchises fans out there that, I'll take that. I take that he's never under 500. Mm-hmm. Give me that. But in Pittsburgh, like you said, it's as funny as it sounds, with all that winning, if you don't win playoff games, that's what it's all about. And as you've referenced before regarding Russell Wilson, is kind of why he's here. I mean, you're in the playoffs. He knows how to win, and hopefully he can get that monkey off their back. So yeah, it sounds like it's a team that, if everything goes well, how far do you think this team can go? Can they win a Super Bowl with the roster that they have if everything goes well, and if Russell Wilson is reborn?
If he's reborn, if we go to that level, then yes. I mean, because it comes down to quarterback play ultimately. We can throw away all the particulars about D-line depth and slot corner, like, who's your quarterback? Can you make those plays late? Can you put points and win a game by putting up 30? At his best, I think he could. Are you likely to get that? Probably not. You'll probably get something a rung or 2 below that, which is why I think they're a wild card winner, not a Super Bowl winner. But we'll see. And Mike Tomlin, to his credit, he knows how to win close games. I mean, literally, since Tomlin was hired in 2007, no team has played as many one-possession games as the Pittsburgh Steelers. And no team has a higher winning percentage in one-possession games than the Pittsburgh Steelers. They win every game, 17-14. That's enough to get you so far. But if you want to win a Super Bowl, you can't do that winning 17-14. This is not 1976 anymore. And so that's going to be the challenge for this team.
Yeah, and we just talked about Atlanta being a very interesting first game. And it's even interesting the following week with Russell going to Denver.
Against Bo Nix. Yeah, the old, the new. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, so at least it's going to be entertaining schedule-wise, that's for sure, if you're a Steeler fan this season. Alex, great job. Thank you for preparing us for the season. For any Pittsburgh fans here, of course, watching here, we look forward to talking to you during the season. SteelersDepot.com. And your podcast work, do you have anything specific that you'd like to tell the viewers?
Yeah, just part of the site, The Terrible Podcast, myself and Dave Bryan, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, offering our commentary and analysis. Dave is a salary cap wizard, which is always important. So go to him if you want your Steelers salary. Don't go to me. I can't do the math, but he'll do the math for the both of us and all of Steelers Nation. So yeah, SteelersDepot.com, The Terrible Podcast. Go check us out.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Greg.